what's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Off the Battlefield podcast presented by Veterans Claim Servants. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you if you are a veteran that has served, if you're a transitioning service member, if you are in now. I appreciate you so much. We are veterans serving veterans. We want to give you the information, resources, education that you need so that you, my friends, can be in the best position to be educated and get the benefits that you have rightfully, honest, integrally have earned and deserve. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. Keep this thing running. Share this out with a friend that can use this help today. Today, I'm going to get right into it. Can you own a gun if you have PTSD, right? If you're diagnosed with it, can you own a gun? There's stuff around the rumor mill that you cannot, but I'm going to get into that today. It is very, very important to understand that. Myself personally, I have a concealed carry permit, right? And do own a gun, right? I was in combat and all that jazz, in war and everything. But yes, you can own a gun, is the long story short. Yes, you can own a gun if you do have PTSD, but I'm going to get over some of the criteria and some of the things that are very important to understand about this. Okay. So let's get right into this. PTSD is the number one most common service connected mental health condition among veterans. Okay. Um, with VA disability ratings from 0 to 100% based on the severity of symptoms and their impact on daily function. And mainly when we think of mental health, we do think of PTSD. A lot of people refer back to that as I have PTSD or I saw this and I want to file a claim for PTSD, right? It's important to understand that a VA rating for PTSD does not automatically disqualify a veteran from owning, right, or purchasing firearms. Federal law prohibits gun ownership only for those legally, this is important, legally deemed mentally incompetent or involuntarily committed to a mental institution, right? It's also important if you've committed domestic violence, if you're in jail, if there is a mental reason for you not to be able to own a gun, okay? Um, Remember, PTSD is you saw or witnessed a stressful event. It doesn't mean that you're a killer or something like that. I believe that the world, this is my personal opinion here, I believe that the world in that the United States and that veterans get a bad rap with the word PTSD. That is a stressful situation that happened to you. Maybe you were in combat, one of your friends got hurt, killed, you had a traumatic experience, whatever you went through, and you're having to deal with that. You're waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning having night sweats and night terrors. That is not, you know, that does not mean that you cannot own a firearm. You're having flashbacks or you're having a hard time in crowds. That doesn't mean that you are mentally incapacitated and that you cannot own a gun. Okay. If you have something on your record and you have something that has prevented you from owning a gun, and you're a threat to someone or to yourself, then absolutely that can prevent you from owning a firearm and absolutely not put you in the best position to have one. Right. But if you do have PTSD and you're diagnosed and you don't have any of those issues and that you've not been locked up in a mental institution or committed to one, or if you're not deemed mentally incompetent, like you're crazy and don't know what you're doing, then absolutely you can own a gun. But if you do have domestic violence charges or a felony or any of those things, even if you weren't diagnosed with PTSD, you wouldn't be able to have a gun in most cases. Okay. You need to show that you're a responsible citizen. And in my experience too, most people who do have guns and stuff like that are great citizens or responsible citizens. I have many friends who have been diagnosed with PTSD and other things from their time in the military service and other diagnosis, and they have a gun and they are absolutely amazing people. But we like to associate PTSD with crazy, and that's not the case. I think that that's wrong. I do not agree with that. PTSD just means that you experience something due to your service to our country, and it's coming back sometimes while you're sleeping or in crowds or a war movie or at your house. There's just something that you're having because you went through a very stressful experience. And a lot of people get it, not just military, but that's the first thing people like to point out about veterans is, oh, you've got that PTSD thing. And it's like, we're crazy. And it's like, no, we're not crazy. We went through some pretty traumatic experiences and stuff. And it doesn't mean I'm not responsible and that I want to go beat my wife or anything like that. Then I want to talk about fiduciary assignment. If the VA assigns a fiduciary to manage a veteran's financial affairs due to mental incompetence. Okay, so again, this is going into mental incompetence. The veteran may be reported to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System, aka NICS, potentially restricting the gun ownership rights, and then challenging restrictions, meaning veterans who are assigned fiduciary, fiduciary, and reported to NICS, right? Can challenge the decision through a competency hearing or by appealing the VA's determination to restore their gun ownership rights. Okay. So the answer is, to make a long story short, yes, you can generally own a gun if you have PTSD, but there are specific circumstances to consider. A diagnosis of PTSD alone does not automatically disqualify you from owning or purchasing a firearm. So again, a diagnosis of PTSD alone does not automatically disqualify you from owning or purchasing a firearm. Under federal law, particularly the Gun Control Act of 1968, individuals are prohibited from owning or buying firearms only if they have been adjudicated as mentally defective or have been committed to a mental institution. This means that unless a court or some similar legal authority has declared you mentally incompetent, right? Then you can own a gun. Okay. It's very important to know that. If you've been involuntarily committed, right? Your PTSD diagnosis by itself does not prevent you from gun ownership. However, this is important. If the VA assigns, again, a fiduciary to manage your financial affairs due to mental incompetence, this may result in your name being reported to the FBI's National Intent Criminal Background Check System, which could then restrict your ability to purchase or own firearms under law. Can you buy a gun if you have PTSD? Yes, you can generally buy a gun if you have PTSD. A PTSD diagnosis alone does not automatically disqualify you from purchasing or owning firearms under federal law. However, if you have been legally declared mentally incompetent or have been assigned a fiduciary by the VA to manage your financial affairs due to mental health reasons, you may be prohibited from purchasing or owning firearms. The key factor is not the PTSD diagnosis, but whether there's been a legal determination of mental incompetence. If there's no such determination, your PTSD diagnosis does not prevent you from buying a gun. Okay. Again, the key factor is not the PTSD diagnosis itself, but whether there's been a legal determination of mental incompetence, or you've been locked up, or beat the junk out of your wife, those type of things, and you're a danger to society or a threat to yourself or someone else, or you're mentally incompetent. Those are the things that take you away. Again, there's a stigma around PTSD, and that diagnosis has nothing to do whether you can own a gun or not. For many veterans, gun ownership, right? It's a significant aspect of life. A lot of veterans are used to it, shooting guns, whether that's for personal protection, recreation, hunting, or anything. However, concerns often arise regarding how a VA rating for PTSD could affect the veteran's ability to own or purchase firearms. And here again are a couple of things that you need to know. You need to understand the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. It's called the Brady Act, right? It was in 1993 that this was enacted, right? The Brady Act established the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, the NICS, as I was talking about earlier, to screen individuals attempting to purchase firearms. Veterans deemed mentally incompetent by the VA and assigned a fiduciary are reported to NICS, potentially leading to a denial of their ability to purchase firearms under federal law, right? Federal firearm prohibitions Gun Control Act of 1968 under federal law. Specifically, the individuals who have been adjudicated as mentally defective or involuntarily committed to a mental institution are prohibited from purchasing or possessing firearms. This determination is typically made by a court or similar legal authority. Again, not by the VA, right? We talked about the fiduciary program. If somebody needs to manage your financial affairs because you're deemed unable to do so yourself, that could result in you not being able to carry a firearm. I want to get into implications of high PTSD ratings. A high PTSD rating alone does not automatically lead to firearm prohibition. However, if the VA determines that a veteran is mentally incompetent, right, to manage your financial affairs and assigns a fiduciary, this could trigger a reporting requirement to NICS, potentially impacting the veteran's gun ownership rights. Okay. You can challenge a fiduciary determination if you want. That is placed on you by the NICS or reported to them. It's also important to remember state-specific gun laws, whatever state that you're in. You need to understand that while federal laws set the baseline for firearm regulations, individual states can impose stricter controls. Some states have their own versions of extreme risk laws, aka red flag laws, or mental health related firearm restrictions that could affect veterans with PTSD. Veterans should be aware of your specific state laws, okay, as they may impose additional requirements or restrictions beyond federal law. Move to Texas, move to Florida, move to a place a little bit less lenient, non-democratic, if you will. Move there. Those laws don't have those. Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act, proposed several times in Congress, but not yet passed into law. The Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act aims to protect veterans from being automatically reported to NICS solely based on having a fiduciary appointed. If enacted, it would ensure that only veterans adjudicated as mentally incompetent by a judicial authority, not just assigned a fiduciary, would lose their gun rights. Again, you can appeal it if something is reported to NICS. It could trigger a firearm prohibition, but you can and you do have a right to appeal and get your restoration of gun rights as well. And then another thing that you need to remember, veterans, is that you are protected under HIPAA, right, and the Privacy Act and privacy concerns. You might be concerned about your medical records being shared without consent. That is not supposed to be happening according to the HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It generally protects medical records from being disclosed. But whenever it comes to reporting individuals who are mentally incompetent to NICS, the VA is required by law to provide this information to ensure compliance with federal armed prohibitions. So PTSD, because you have the diagnosis, does not mean that you cannot have a gun. So the relationship between VA PTSD ratings and gun ownership rights is complex, but manageable, right? Mainly, you cannot own a gun if you're deemed mentally, incapacitated, if you have to get locked up because of your mental health, if you are a threat to yourself or society, or you need to assign a fiduciary to manage your financial affairs and you are not mentally all there. A high PTSD rating alone does not qualify you from owning firearms. Specific VA determinations regarding mental incompetence in the assignment of a fiduciary can lead to restrictions. They could, by law, report that to the NICS. But again, a lot of things have to be in place for that to happen. But veterans, you need to be educated and understand your rights and taking proactive steps so that you can be educated and ensure that your gun ownership rights are protected while you receive the benefits and care you deserve for your service-related PTSD. Okay? So you can have a PTSD rating and retain your gun rights. Yes. Can you buy a gun with PTSD? Yes, you can if you have not been legally adjudicated as mentally incompetent or assigned a fiduciary by the VA. Can a veteran with a PTSD own a gun? Yes, you sure can own a gun, right? Again, as long as you've not been legally declared mentally incompetent. Does my VA rating percentage for my PTSD impact my ability to buy or own a gun? Your VA rating percentage for PTSD does not directly impact your ability to buy or own a gun. Can you have a 100% VA rating for PTSD and own a gun? Yes, you can. You can have a 100% VA disability rating for PTSD and still own a gun. What happens if the VA assigns you a fiduciary? They can report it to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS, because you're deemed mentally not all there. You're mentally incompetent. Can you appeal if you're deemed incompetent by the VA? Yes, you have the right to appeal the VA's decision if you're deemed mentally incompetent. Does a VA fiduciary automatically mean I lose my gun rights? Yes. If the VA assigns a fiduciary due to a finding of mental incompetence, it typically means or results in loss of gun rights under federal law. Can you regain your gun rights? Yes, you can. And what if your VA PTSD rating is reassessed or increased, right? It does not automatically impact your gun ownership rights, right? Can you still work in law enforcement or security if you have a PTSD rating? Yes, having a PTSD rating from the VA does not automatically disqualify you from working in law enforcement or security. However, if you're going to be on the flight, a pilot or anything like that, the FAA does have very stringent requirements for PTSD. So there is a lot there with the gun ownership, a lot that we can continue to get into and talk about. But yes, you can own a gun and have a PTSD rating. So again, I hope that this helps you. I don't want to be too long-winded to you. I just want to make sure that you have the education and everything that you need, because I think it's a common myth and a lot of people just do not know the answer. But I'm here to give you that answer so that you know and that you're not worried about that. But depending on what state you live in, we saw this with COVID. You could be locked down, strapped up in a prison cell as well too. Some states are that way. Some states are very controlling, if you will, and you need to know your state laws as well too. I'm gonna say it again: move to Texas or Florida. It's pretty no state taxes. It's a great place for veterans to live. And I have talked about some of the best places for veterans to live in another video, which I'll share here. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. Thank you for your service to our country. You matter. You're very important. To me, you're important to us. And we thank you for your service to our country. Until next time, I am out. Peace.